This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we were supposed to get started at 1:30. There you go. I always wanted to do that.
Gotta use the hammer when it's there.
Sound like you broke the table.
Well, you can't really tell, but he hit it good.
Welcome to everybody. My name is Jesus Reyes. For those of you that are here as guests, the chairman for the Far West Texas Water Planning Group, Region E. We'd like to recognize guests and designated alternates.
Yes, sir. I can do that for you if you'd like.
Will you?
So we do have Mr. Jose Ramirez with Fabens Water District.
Yep.
He has, after having a conversation with Commissioner Albert Miller, who was not able to attend, he allowed for Mr. Ramirez to serve as the proxy. And I think this is a really good opportunity for the district. That way they have a better understanding of how to get some of their projects on the water strategies, as well as just learning the process. I think at this point, since we're still at the beginning, I think that'd be really beneficial for them as well. And then Laura
He's
Ballard.
got two of his guests.
Yes,
two of
yes.
his
Jose, would you like to
Ladies.
introduce your staff?
We have Ms. Omelia Martinez, she's my assistant, and then Ms. Patty Cruz, she's our finance manager.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Mr. Grijalva, one of our new members here at the Water Planning Group, representing water districts. If you'd like to introduce your staff.
Oh, Jerry, how about our water district?
Well,
We have Ed Bombs is our chief of operations, our engineer basically. And Ben Rodriguez, who is our senior accountant.
very good. Thank you.
So, yes, but no, and it's budget and.
Budget analyst.
I was gonna say everybody doubles
Because
because
he's got like
CFO.
5.
That's a smart.
One of his many
He's
hats.
actually staying for my court this time.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then everybody else here is part of the planning group. If Jenna, you want to introduce yourself?
Janet Adams with Underground Water District, Hannaford, thanks.
I'm Scott Warner with El Paso Water Utilities.
Omar Martinez. I work with the El Paso County Water Improvement District number 1, but today I'm acting as an alternate for counties. Teresa Todd.
Jennifer Herrera, Region E consultant.
Andrew Feigenbaum, Region E consultant.
And that's Gutierrez Rio Grande Council Government sponsoring entity.
Becky Brewster from the town of Van Horn.
Hey, Paul, just a member of the public representing the public.
David Edsel, representing real estate and development interests.
So Benson, private sending?
Yes, sir.
And
And then,
7 minutes with general manager with the El Paso County Deputy Saving them.
in the back here, we have Mr. David Young, who will be utilized from IPS for our audio visual. And today he's providing the visual just to make sure that those of you in the virtual world can see what's happening. So what I'll do right now is I'll just introduce those that are on participating right now virtually. So let me go ahead and make it bigger so you all can see them here on the screen. We do have Elizabeth McCoy, who's our planner for Water Development Board. We have Randy Barker, who's trying to get his camera on, so hopefully that will happen. Steri Butcher, representing the public. Kevin Urbanzik is representing alternate for Jeff Bennett. And Tim Leary out of Alpine representing agriculture. And then I'll turn it over to Mayor Summer Webb because she's going to introduce Haley Davis.
Hi guys, Summer Webb with the representing GMA4 with the Culberson County Groundwater Conservation District, and then Haley Davis is our new assistant general manager, who I'm really excited to bring on. And I will be transitioning out of my role as the general manager in the next 6 months or so, and Haley will be stepping in for me. And there, right beside her, is the future of water, her little sweet baby Lux.
Yeah.
So.
Haley, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm just here to watch y'all do y'all's thing, learn something.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, so we'll go to item number 3, public comment. Anybody with any public comment?
So let me go ahead and make this available to us now on the slideshow. Okay, public comments. So I don't believe that we have any, no one has asked to sign up for public comments or to speak,
Nope.
so we can move on to the next one.
Item 4, review and approve the minutes of the general meeting held February 17th of 2022.
Jerry, I've got one question in relation to this. Do we have any response on item number 7, where we reposted nominations for counties for utilities and tourism? Has there been any response on that?
No, we haven't yet. Mr. Hall, we're going to go ahead and have that available for the May meeting. So we'll present that at the May meeting.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Motion to accept the minutes.
Second. There's been a motion and a second. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Everybody vote by indicating aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right.
Okay. Item number 5, we haven't had a chair's conference call, so I don't have anything to report
Okay.
on item 5.
Elizabeth, is there anything that you would like to report out for this section, or?
No, I don't think so. I think we're planning on trying to schedule a chairs conference call soon. I think we're aiming for this summer, but more info soon.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6, member updates. I know I'll call on Omar. I know Omar's been talking to the chair for Texas Water Development Board, Kathleen Jackson. He wanted to give a little update to the members.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. So the one update I want to give is that Far West Texas is getting a lot of attention on some of the new work that we're doing as part of both water and flood planning efforts. In a couple of weeks back, there was a publication from the Texas Tribune that was criticizing some of the Texas Water Development Board's funding decisions regarding how much money goes back to rural communities, small systems, and whatnot, that they're not meeting legislative intent. And so essentially the Texas Water Development Board and their SWIFT funds have to give 10% of that money to small communities and rural areas. And so the same reporter from the Texas Tribune interviewed Mayor Brewster asking about how is Van Horn being impacted. And Mayor Brewster was very gracious in giving credit to the Council of Government and some of the work that we've been doing. So to give you a background, under the direction of Mr. Reyes, he had asked us to provide small bits of technical assistance to member governments, such as town of Van Horn, to get them where they need to be to push projects forward and then access the funding. This is what we call pre-development work. This is a lot of the technical, environmental, budgeting, costing, that type of work that you need to put together a competitive application and get access to the funding. Thankfully, we've been successful with Van Horn, and we were able to get some results, and that was published as part of the Texas Tribune report. In response to that, I got a call from Kathleen Jackson asking, hey, so what are you guys doing in Far West Texas that's working so well? And so she asked for a white paper, and under blessing Mr. Reyes, he said, yeah, go ahead and provide it. And we explained what we did with Van Horn and how this is a successful model. Should, for example, the Texas Water Development Board look to invest some money in COGS or venues such as COGS and tap into the expertise that is available in regional water planning and flood planning groups, we can get a lot of these projects moving forward. Right now, we do a great job in understanding what the community needs are, some of the water, not wastewater projects, but still a lot of our projects have been in a standstill. Well, there seems to be some momentum with all the federal investments that are being made, like the infrastructure bill and the previous COVID-related bills, to push some of these small communities to where they need to be to compete favorably with the larger communities that have all the staff they need to secure this funding and have these small communities get their share. So this is an ongoing process, an ongoing conversation. And next week, the Texas Water Development Board will have the opportunity to talk under the sunset report to the rest of legislature, letting them know, hey, this is what's been working, this is where we need to improve. And I wanted to give credit to members here because a lot of the discussions that are had here inform this pre-development work that we've been providing to the communities in West Texas and the limited success that we've been able to achieve. Another example is your application with EDA. That's one example of the pre-development work that we were going to help you with to get some of that money for projects. So I want to congratulate this group, Mr. Reyes, under his foresight in getting us involved into this process. I think Far West Texas is a model that can be followed throughout the state, and we're doing good things, and the state's finally noticing.
Good job. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
You said that there was one article that came out from this particular journalist.
The Texas Tribune was the first one that I saw.
Do you think you could send a link to that article to us so that we could have that available? And was there a follow-up after you sort of helped and massage the issues?
Yes, I got a chance to talk to Kathleen Jackson. I got a chance to talk to the reporter. She wanted more information on the types of projects that we're doing. She wanted the white paper, and so I was able to provide that. And there seems to be a follow-up story coming up. But again, for this region is finally getting the credit that it deserves, because we're doing things that other water planning groups are definitely not doing.
Really good. I remember when we talked about you, maybe it was 2 years ago, before we prioritized all of our projects, and we were talking about the stuff that you all needed to get funding for. Very basic understanding of your whole region, and you all didn't have the resources for it.
Right, and we hired engineers to study our water and sewer systems and give us a capital improvements plan, and the council prioritized everything. And with Omar and the Cox help, we applied to EDA for funding on one project that hopefully we'll get a contract next week.
Hopefully.
And then we took everything else that was on that capital improvements plan for water and put it into the project interest form with the Water Development Board, because our community, we can't afford a loan that big, but they also have loan forgiveness, and based on our demographics and everything, we qualify for a certain percentage of loan forgiveness.
50%.
So,
Fantastic.
you know,
Good job.
there's a few prayers and see where that goes. Because that,
Fort Davis next, Jack?
So
I hope so. I've got things here working already.
What are the improvements, Becky?
Do what?
What are the improved projects or specifically?
The EDA is, everything on the west side of town is kind of uphill, so we don't have enough pressure. So it's to build a new pressure zone and put in a water tower, because we're also right there on the cusp of exceeding the amount of, or not having enough water storage capacity for the overhead amount that we have to have. The everything else that we threw in for the Water Development Board includes replacing an old AC pipe that provides the water from the plant to our whole downtown area coming under the railroad tracks and everything. And the train wobbles and it breaks it, and it's like 10 feet down, and it's creating a lot of problems. And we're constantly having boil water notices throughout the town, just from the aging infrastructure. We need water tank and tower maintenance. They need to be cleaned out and redone and everything else. What else was there, Omar?
Pump, new well?
The new well, yeah, that's pretty critical.
Right.
Right now, we've got the exact amount of water that we need per capita pumping capacity, but if one of our main wells go down, then we're kicked into water conservation measures because we don't meet the minimum requirements.
An interesting tidbit about this process is that the Texas Water Development Board's water planning process accounts for population projections. Van Horn is unique that it has a huge transient population come into the town, use water, and then leave. And those are not captured on your traditional census data. So what we were able to argue is this increased water use per capita does not reflect true conditions. And that allows us to justify a lot of these investments that otherwise we wouldn't be able to tap into, because the way the system is designed, that I guess they would claim, the system would claim that Van Horn doesn't need these improvements. But again, it's that super high per capita number that allowed us to justify a lot of these.
So we're thinking Blue Origin for this?
In a way.
I think Becky's promised us a free ticket on one of these flights.
There you go.
I'll get my free ticket. After that, then I'll work with somebody else. But in line with all of this, we have 3 hotels that have been trying to come in for the last almost 2 years that we've not been able to bring in because we don't have the water infrastructure.
Wow.
and they're chomping at the bit, ready to go. One of them even is, I think on the agenda for Monday's night's meeting to say, hey, let us have a permit to build our hotel. We'll sign whatever acknowledging that we recognize that you don't have water yet, but you're getting it done, but we want to build now so that hopefully they'll convert at the
Isn't that
same
interesting?
time.
Wow.
And our hotels are full. I had family come in for a funeral, and my mom was calling through all the hotels in town, and this was not at a launch time, not on anything, and they had trouble finding a hotel. You know, so it's, even without the launch things, we have military in there, we have travelers stopping, and we have very good hotel occupancy.
That's great.
So if we can bring in more hotels, we've got some comfort. Some people like the idea of new hotels, some people don't.
Are you looking into private-public partnerships in some of these projects?
We've started talking, the hotel developers are interested in doing something too. And that may be where we have to go if we don't get some of the other funding. We're novices on that, and none of us know how to do it or what to do.
Right. Well, some of this is a common practice for us. In our development agreements, we actually allow for investor supply infrastructure that's dedicated to us. And with the another contract on the side that says that they can group up with half of their investment on vacant properties that are allowed to develop because the infrastructure is proper.
Okay, then yes, we just did that because we have an express travel center coming into town, and they're investing like $500,000 to connect to our water main and go under the interstate to get it to their property, as well as connecting down the frontage road. And so TxDOT requires them to turn around and dedicate that back over to us. So we do have a development agreement. But they did it all and gave it to our attorney to review it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And they get paid back as the tax for the new development hook into your system?
Yeah, where they're at.
Can it be a while?
Yeah, I think that it specified the number of years that they could get it. And it's not based on front footage. We've done things front footage before. Theirs is based on capacity. Like they need 100 gallons a minute and the line's designed for 300 gallons a minute. So they've got that much capacity, excess capacity that they could let tap into it.
We're basing it on square footage, linear footage.
Yeah, see, that's how we did it before.
But the capacity actually makes a lot of
It's a
sense.
minimum, yeah. You don't know how many houses.
Right. We would love, that's where we're short, is we don't have housing. Blue Origin has contracted with the developer, and they built a 48-unit apartment complex, and then they're building 10 duplexes right now, but they're all for
Just those employees.
Blue Origin employees. So we don't have housing for doctors and teachers and border patrol and everybody else that's moving in. So it's hard to attract professionals to come into town because there's not anywhere for them to live. So housing developers, people that know housing developers,
Yes.
get them to
Have
come
a brains working overtime.
come invest in Van Horn and build it. Because pretty soon we'll have water and we can.
We just finished building a low-income housing project in Alpine, and with a client of mine that I found a site for, and so I'd rather have gone to Van Horn. Frankly, it's a little shorter drive.
Well, we don't need low-income housing as much as we need middle-income housing. You know that.
Well, these projects are, some of it is low, and some of it market rate. So it's not all just that.
Cool.
So in the last few weeks, just so y'all know, so the group knows, we've written several letters of support Lower Valley Water District, several projects that they're grant funding that they're seeking, the county of El Paso through the COG, and it's been great at letting us know who's out there, who needs support, who needs letters of support. So anybody that we can help, we certainly would like to help you all. just the irrigation district, we've been successful in receiving a little over $8 million in funding in the last few years. So that's helped us tremendously in concrete lining canals and upgrading our system. And we have several other grant applications that Omar has been working on, but certainly I want to tell you all that if we can help you all cut corners, or Omar is very experienced in writing up grants, and you know, I've given him the green light of helping Becky and writing letters of support for Becky for some of her projects. And so if we can help you all, I mean, that's what we're here for.
Omar is our hero.
This is an example. This type of conversation doesn't happen in other planning groups, and maybe Texas Water Development Board staff can confirm. I've tapped into those and joined and listened. This is a special group, and the state's noticing.
And I do think, just following up on those federal appropriations, that and you know, well, it's a game. How many times can we say Omar? Good thing there's no alcohol involved. But if we think about it now, getting ourselves ready for the next year, we know now this is the second year that it's come back. So, you know, pending anything drastic, we should assume that it's going to happen again. And we can get ourselves ready to position all of our districts for those water projects to see if we can get you some additional funding through that appropriations. So that was something else that we thought that can happen in the future.
The money's out there. I mean, the Bureau of Reclamation has funding. You know, the Congresswoman Veronica Escobar is working on bringing some more funding into our region. So if we can help you all, we're here. That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Would anybody else, any other member would like to give an update? Scott?
Well, along with what Chuy was talking about in the Bureau of Reclamation, one of the benefits of our water planning efforts is that we have a very comprehensive plan. And when we go to the Bureau of Reclamation for funding, we can kind of parlay some of these studies and the pie diagrams and projections, alternative supplies into the Bureau applications. And so I like to think that we're always preparing for the next Bureau opportunity. And then another topic, I gave a presentation to some engineers on Tuesday talking about the water plan. And I told them that it's a great collaborative effort of learning about water, planning for water. And if we didn't do it, then it doesn't get done. So recognizing that projects take a long time to develop and thinking about them, you can't just wake up 50 years from now and say, oh, we got to do something. We're planning for it. And I like to tell them that we update the plan every 5 years. We just finished the 2021. Guess what? You think we're going to rest? No, we're starting on 2026. Yeah. But that shows you that this is not a plan we just put on the shelves. It's one we're going to work on the population and see where we go from there. But that's the population is the backbone of the whole planning process, and that's what we're working on now. So I tell everybody it's a great process for our projects.
And we've helped other communities like the city of Benton, the town of Benton. We helped them. Omar went out and visited with them several times, and so we've been reaching out to other folks. We're reaching the right people. When you get Chairwoman Kathleen Jackson come visit us several times in this last year, and making phone calls and asking questions, and she'll call me and she'll say, do you mind if I call Omar direct? I said, no, by all means, feel free if he can help you. And Omar's our chairman for the stormwater
flood planning
committee. So he's got his hands full, but
we're trying to do the same for flood as well.
I always end it by saying, no, you can't have it.
So out of curiosity, how many people in this room are partaking in the flood group?
Actually, Dave, Jeff Bennett, and Omar.
Okay.
So they're seeing a lot of me lately. Sorry, guys.
And in fact, they just had a meeting prior to this one.
Yes.
Earlier today. So
Dr. Shane too.
Yes, and Dr. Shang as well with flood planning.
So Fabian, before we welcome you, we, we're glad you're here and we can help you in anything.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Anyone else have any comments they'd like to make out in the screening world?
Anyone virtually?
This is Kevin. I would like to update, I guess, the group on some work that Jeff Bennett and I have been doing. We just completed a gain loss trip that was designed to quantify the groundwater contributions to the Rio Grande below Big Bend National Park all the way to Amistad Reservoir. And we consider it potentially a transboundary aquifer. We have participation from IBWC and USGS and National Park Service and others. And it's a pretty important resource. And we're in the process of getting the report written for the thing, but clearly we see a pretty large increase inflow and an improvement in water quality thanks to the spring inputs from the Edwards Trinity Aquifer and maybe a Mexican equivalent. That part we haven't confirmed yet. So thank you.
Anyone else? Now we'll move on to item number 7.
Yes. And before I do, just wanted to mention that Jennifer and Andrew do have a flight to catch at 5:30, so they should be on their way by 4. So we'll see if we move things along a little bit quicker. Maybe that's the reason why, just to make sure they get back home in time. But for this agenda item, I am asking for your approval to allow for Sean Woodward to serve as a planning member serving industries for the Far West Texas Water Planning Region. He is currently a proxy, and under our bylaws, it does state that if you are a proxy, that you are allowed to be considered permanent if that individual does want to resign or for other reasons. And so Mr. Woodward has expressed interest in serving in this position permanently. So I would ask for favorable consideration.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is that the paragraph under which you were going to consider the paragraph 7 issue that I mentioned earlier?
No,
I'm not sure.
She said the May meeting.
The May meeting was going to be for the,
Well, that was item 7, just putting a new person in as the.
No, item 7 actually talked about counties generating utilities and tourism. And I think Teresa's doing counties.
no, so we don't have any new nominations to, this is a separate item. These are not nominations for vacancies. This is just to.
I understand. But I don't see anything in the agenda to address number 7 either. That's why I was wondering if we'd have a response on.
No, we don't. We don't have anybody for counties and.
No
tourism.
response.
No, not yet.
Okay, all right, thanks.
But we are going to try and
For May, yes.
for May, right?
We're still missing tourism and generating activities, and I guess another county's representative.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So this one's separate, and this one's separate from those agenda items. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 8, Texas Water Development Board update.
Yes, and Elizabeth, just let me know when you're ready for me to move it to the transition to the next slide.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So good afternoon. This is Elizabeth McCoy with the Texas Water Development Board. On April the 11th, the TWDB board adopted amendments to chapters 357 and 358. The rule documents are available online at the link that's provided. And we are going to be working on updating the regional water planning rules pamphlet and then preparing a specific presentation to go over the rule changes, and plan to have that available for your May meeting. And then in March, we released the draft list of the municipal water user groups for the 2026 regional water plans. as well as some historical supporting data. This information was emailed out to all the planning group stakeholders, and it's also available online in a dashboard format to help facilitate review of the information. We're requesting that the planning groups review this water user group list and then provide any revisions back to us by July the 29th. And then next slide, please. All right, so we still anticipate amending the regional water planning grant contracts this summer to incorporate the full contract amount for the 6th cycle, as well as the full scope of work and updated contract guidance documents. In anticipation of that, planning groups are starting to go ahead and take action to authorize their political subdivisions to negotiate and execute that upcoming contract amendment. So I believe that is on your agenda for consideration later today. And then lastly, I know that there's been interest in Region E on the EDAP funding program, and that stands for Economically Distressed Areas Program. EDAP provides financial assistance for projects that serve economically distressed areas where water or sewer services don't exist or where the systems don't meet the minimum state standards. We are currently accepting abridged applications for EDAP funds, and the deadline to submit those applications is May 13th. So after that deadline, TWDB will review and prioritize those abridged applications, and then we'll invite eligible projects that receive priority to submit a complete application. So if you're interested in more information, I'd invite you to visit our website and feel free to reach out to our financial assistance team if you have any questions, and that contact information is provided here on this slide. That's all the updates that I have for you today. Are there any questions?
There's a question from David.
Yeah, do we have anybody currently processing any applications for EDAP?
That's what I was going to ask. Who's the point person on those applications?
Do we have anybody processing EDAP applications from the counties that were
from our region?
Yeah, our region.
Well, we had a discussion with Fabens Water District about EDAP. I think that some of the problems that we may be running into is that if you're not in a position where you need first-time water, or you don't have your community is not as distressed, you're not going to get very many points. And so, Mr. Ramirez, do you want to talk a little bit about some of what have been the struggles for your district in terms of applying for EDAP and where you fare?
Especially with the Texas Water Development Board, is that we have no TCQ plans or any problem with TCQ, so we don't score real high when it comes to some of the funding. Last year we applied all the projects that we did, or like 10 projects, and the closest we got was how much? Hunt subdivision, which is a first-time wastewater usage, and yet our scores were like 30%. So we won't even get funding.
And I think that the other item that might be of consideration also is that now the requirement is higher for the match. It's 70-30 now as opposed to 90-10, and Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong, but so I think that if you're going to apply for EDAP, it's going to be because you're going to want to do that if you're in any have any issues with TCQ, any potential fines, you're not compliant, or you're in need of first-time water or sewer. And so we have not. I don't think Vincent has looked at applying to EDAP either, right?
I'll have to check. I think they might have already tapped into it.
So aside from Fabens Water District, and I don't know about Laura Valley, if you all want to talk, if you're looking at applying for this funding, this cycle?
Currently, we're not applying through any TWDB funding streams. We're using the county, the Texas Department of Agriculture, and that bank for some of the.
So going back 40 years when we started first seeing our own version of Colonias here in El Paso, maybe even 50 years ago. And some of those have now been addressed by you guys. El Paso Water Utilities took that special program line out Montana Street to the Waco area. How does a neighborhood like, let's just use Waco as an example, that's not being served now, how do they organize and come forward to try to see if they can get funding through this program? I mean, because you're not going to advocate for them. Well, El Paso Water Utilities isn't going to advocate for them. So who, maybe that's what David's asking.
Yeah, I've seen
Who's the
several
advocate?
things on the news lately about trying to take water and sewage to some of the communities that don't have it now.
Benton has a problem on the uphill side of the freeway, in
south,
all of that area that's up there.
Yeah, even south of Montana, out on East Montana,
Yeah,
out in that area.
That's what I'm talking about.
County Commissioner Eliana Holguin has been working on, so I don't know if the county is going to get heavily involved in that.
El Paso County has set aside, I think, I'm trying to remember my numbers. I thought it was as much as 20 million. Doesn't sound like a lot nowadays, but about $20 million for water, wastewater projects.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that if these communities don't lie within that service area, Lower Valley is not going to go try to find
That's
them.
what I'm saying.
And
These guys have their own
ESB's not,
hands full with their own projects.
So EDAP
EDAP's
can't
not
be
gonna-
used for that, is what you're
Right,
saying.
Elizabeth,
because of the
with
matching
EDAP, you
requirement.
have to be a water district, a city, a county. It can't be private.
Right. I believe that's true. Yeah,
Well-
you can be a city, a county, water district, or any other kind of political subdivision.
So if it was a WUG, if it was adjacent to a WUG, one of our water user group, they could piggyback on that water user group to get access. Is that what you're saying, Elizabeth?
Essentially.
Can we do it?
I'm not sure exactly. I kind of cut out a little bit, so I didn't hear exactly what you said, but something about kind of having someone adjacent sponsor the project.
Okay, so the Lower Valley
Did I
Water is
understand that?
adjacent to some of these areas that may qualify for EDAP funding that aren't organized. Can we sponsor them through it?
You know, that's a good question. I would need to ask our financial assistance folks what the specifics are, but I can definitely do that and send you guys more information. I believe that has been done in the past, but I would need to confirm.
And then I don't know what, Janet, you all don't have any, you're not looking at applying to EDAP or if you know of any other communities within the region are looking at applying?
Presidio would be, but we can.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure, the problem with us, we may not qualify for the low income. So, yeah, and even though we should, that I don't think we will.
And then you're not.
That's what the engineer's looking at now.
And if you're looking at just traditional demographics,
Mhm.
you're not going to meet it. But we can always look into an alternative approach the way we did with Van Horn, where there's little details. We can twist the story and make sure we highlight those things, those needs that are in Fort Davis that demographics don't capture and could make you be able to qualify for a lot of this funding.
I haven't even called me.
And
He's out there.
what we can do, Chairman Reyes, is I'll send out an email to our water planning group members and just inform them of the May 13th deadline and ask them if they have any intention so we can get an idea if
Okay,
that's happening.
that sounds like a good
Okay.
idea.
Thanks.
Thanks for bringing that up, David. Both David.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Any other questions for Elizabeth before she leaves? No? Okay, we'll move on to item 9, discussion and possible action to authorize Rio Grande Council of Governments to negotiate and execute an amendment to the Texas Water Development Board contract to incorporate the full scope of work and total project cost for the 2026 regional water plan.
Yes, and this is following up on what Elizabeth had mentioned in her presentation. We are asking for approval from the water planning group to allow us to negotiate the amendment to the current contract that we have. So that way, when that does become available, we can execute that and be ready to turn around and amend our contract with WSP so they can start doing the work for the full project.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Right.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 10, review and discuss Texas Water Development Board draft municipal WGs.
Yes, and I'm going to have Jennifer sit over here so that way those in the virtual world can see Jennifer. She'll be right. We can just get right in front of this one. Okay, there you are. And then, but you'll be moving it from here. So this will be for that, and then this is just for your camera. Or where? How do I move it? Just with your mouse here. So just click it. Okay. I'll go back. Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and kind of get started. As Elizabeth said, in March, the board released our municipal water user group list and some historical data that Andrea and I have taken a look at and kind of compared to what we had done in the previous plan and what were their recommended changes. And so that's kind of what I'm going to present today. And then I think the homework assignment of which we agreed upon at the last meeting was you then need to kind of look through it, talk, and decide, are there changes we want to make? Because we do have a July deadline. Are we happy with the recommendation that the board has? So just an overview, because sometimes our meetings are quarterly. This was an exception to our rule. We're meeting a little more frequently than we normally do when the work is slower. So I like to always go back and talk about what did we do in that last meeting so it can kind of set us up in a place where we're moving forward into the next piece of data. So in February, we had been handed pieces of our non-municipal water demands, and that was for livestock, manufacturing, and steam electric power. And so we had come with a presentation to show you where were we throughout the planning period in the 2021 plan, and what is the draft numbers in comparison to that looking like. So we dived into that material. Now, solidifying and agreeing on what those demand numbers should be, that deadline is not until July of 2023. So we have time to kind of park it for a moment and wait for the board to release, which they will do here shortly, the other two pieces of that non-municipal water demand data. All right, so getting into the material that we want to cover and talk about today, just kind of want to keep you guys aware of where we are with the board's working schedule and the scope related to that. So we're sitting inside that red circle, working through some of the material that was released in March, trying to get ready for that deadline in July back to the board. So again, the March material release was our WUG list and the historical population and GPCV data. And we're discussing it so we can meet our July deadline for recommended changes. And then in August, we will get the last section of our non-municipal draft demand numbers for both irrigation and mining. All right. So I'm actually going to kind of work off of two. Well, no, that works because the folks on one side were kind of covering some of my letters, but I see it here now. So these are just the action, not the action items, the agenda items that were in today's packet of what we're going to go through. We're going to talk through that municipal water user group list, and then we're going to look at the county other water systems list. And I will take time to kind of remind us, because I know it's been 4 to 5 years since we had to look at this before, and we'll just capture questions and comments as we go. All right, So some things that we need to be mindful of when we're looking at this information. All of the 2021 WUDs will be part of the 2026 plan. So as long as they have been active and have a community PWS, everything that was in our previous plan moves over into this draft plan. So that was something that the board pointed out when the information was released to consultants. New WUDs in the 2026 plan were determined by whether or not the utility used more than 100 acre-feet. That has always been the threshold that differentiates a county other to a actual municipal water user group. So we'll look at our data and see if we've got any new WUDs coming into our list. Just small reminders, we reviewed this in the last 2 cycles, but there are differences between a retail public utility and a privately owned utility. So retail public utility is owned by a political subdivision, and privately owned utilities that request the inclusion as an individual WUD are approved by this group here. Some terminology that the board uses, and I think we can still use this, correct, Elizabeth, our CRU? Okay, I'm getting a nod. So collective reporting units are a group of retail public utilities that have something in common, and that this group requests that it's like an additive, we add them together and we report one line. We did that in 2 cases in the last plan, and I've got some slides that can walk us through what we did in our previous plan, and do we want to carry that over into this draft plan. But we had requested from the Water Development Board 2 CRUs in our 2021 plan. So this was the memo that went out to the Water Development Board back in August of 2017. We sent it in prior to the deadline with the request from this planning group that we would like Fort Bliss and East Biggs water system to be a CRU. So in our data from the board, it was going to come in as Fort Bliss, and the value there would be Fort Bliss and East Biggs added together. We also requested that for Benton Hills subdivision and Benton Village estates. So same concept, one name, one line, but their data throughout the planning period would be added up together. So I wanted to make sure that I presented that information today, because we'll need to make some decisions at the next meeting as to how we want to move forward and if this is the path you want to maintain.
Does this Fort Bliss and East Biggs now mean that it's being reported as one unit or separate?
Yep, so a little caveat to that story. We requested that that be the case, and when we got our draft tables of our water demands, they actually forgot that we had sent a memo, and we were already too late in the distribution of the data. So our 2021 plan literally showed Fort Bliss and then another line for East Biggs. And the intent was, please remember that this is what you did and want, and we will get that implemented into the next plan. So although we sent the memo, our data didn't show it as a one line summed up, because the Water Development Board just accidentally forgot that we had requested that.
So really showing there really is no East Biggs company. I mean, it's a, right? The reality is it seems like we're going to have one Fort Bliss entry, of which the water utilities provides 25% of their needs through wholesale.
Right.
The rest is there. As long as that wholesale volumes there's captured.
Yes, so you're talking wholesale, which is a little bit different than our water user group list, but you're right. And I think that's why we had requested originally that the accounting of it is just one Fort Bliss.
So yeah, so going forward, you're going to see Fort Bliss once, and then if you read the tables further, you'll see that El Paso provides wholesale to a portion of Fort Bliss's needs.
Yep.
So East Biggs is going away.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's good, really. I mean, I get asked a lot of Fort Bliss questions, and you can explain that East Biggs geographically is the area that's getting the wholesale water, but it sounds like we're talking about 2 different companies.
It does, yeah. So maybe, right, so maybe the recommendation at the next meeting from this group is that we keep our CRUs that we had identified in the last plan, so that we are doing just that. We're reporting one Fort Bliss with the sum of East Biggs and Fort Bliss together.
And if we call Fort Bliss one entity, and then maybe in the description somewhere, say formerly.
Yep.
Because there's wholesale, and I think if you describe that Fort Bliss uses their wells and wholesale water from us to meet their demands,
Yeah.
that's described somewhere in the report, I think it's good.
Right. So this is for accounting purposes on our tables and things. We can expand in our context and write up however we want. So we can certainly add that language.
Here's a, I don't know, basic question. Why don't they merge?
Why don't what merge?
Fort Bliss and East Biggs.
It's all Fort Bliss, it's just where the water comes from.
I think I think East Biggs came up as essentially being where our wholesale water is going to, East Biggs. But it artificially makes it sound like there's two water entities out there, which there are not. And I think the descriptions of saying, where does Fort Bliss, how much water does Fort Bliss use? How much of it comes from their wells? How much comes from wholesale? But it's one Fort Bliss. And I think East Biggs kind of artificially splits the two. And Fort Bliss and the Fort Bliss, which is the old Bliss, the old parade grounds, and then the new hospital, that's East Biggs. And I think it was meant to try to capture the eastern demands of Fort Bliss, but in reality, we just described how much water Fort Bliss needs, and they get it through either their wells, 75% of their water, and 25% of their need comes from our wholesale. And East Biggs, that's where all the brackish water is. That's where they can't drill their own wells. That's where they get water from the utilities. Out east. But I think a simple explanation would help with that. It's just one Fort Bliss. That's what I'd like to see.
Okay, I'll make that note.
One more question. Are there any privately owned utilities that have requested inclusion as a well?
I have not received any requests. Have you? No.
Okay, so there aren't any at this point.
At this
Okay,
point.
all right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just review the board's data here. So this is the table that was in our 2021 plan. Normally attached to it is our decades, 2030, 2040, 2050, and so on and so forth, with our water demands. But we have not been released the water demand numbers, so that's not relevant at this point. Right now, we just need to decide if we agree with the list of municipal water user groups that the board has suggested. So what I'd like to point out is nothing's changed from the 2021 plan other than in red font, we'd like to see Fort Bliss and East Biggs water system. So there is a water system out there that returned a survey as one reporting unit called Fort Bliss. So we'll decide if that's the steps you want to take, and I can generate a new memo to get that to the board. The other item of interest is our Studi Butte interlingual water system that historically in our previous plans was always captured as county other. So they did not generate more than 100 acre feet, has now generated more than 100 acre feet. So they're coming up into our municipal water user group list. So we get one addition to the 2026 draft. And those are the items that, you know, are of importance to kind of look at today.
How does how does the threshold of 100 acre feet get counted? Is it like one time you break 100 acre feet and you're not county other?
No. So
Average
Elizabeth
or-
can guide me if I misspeak, but it's a survey taken between 2015 and 2019. So in the last plan, it was 2010 to 2015, and it's an average. If you, through that, survey period, can average more than 100 acre feet, then that trips that threshold and you come in as a municipal what? Elizabeth, is that correct? Just to make sure.
Yeah, that sounds correct, but I'm not sure if it's an average or if it's just if you have the 100 acre feet per year in response to the previous 5-year survey. It may just be if you reach 100 acre feet.
Mm-hmm.
But let me take a look.
Okay.
David, you had a
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So while we're talking about incorporating one WUG name for the Fort Bliss area and the Studi Butte, why aren't we putting the Vinton Hills subdivision, which
Yep.
used to be in county other, into that, because it now exceeds the 100 acre feet per year threshold, right?
No, so the Vinton Hills and the Vinton Hills estate is still less than 100 acre feet, and they're on a separate table of which we had requested. They're pretty much the same. We'd like it to just be one accounting unit. So I know I'm getting there. So these are our municipal WUGs. And then in addition to this, we will have a county other item. So it'll say Brewster County Other, Culberson County Other. Well, we as Region E decided we'd like to know what is county other comprised of. And so we developed table 2-7. We're going to look at that here in a minute. And in table 2-7, we literally listed who sits in county other and what is their water use. In that table, instead of listing Vinton Village, and then Vinton Village Estates, we're asking for one line and add them. So 2 different tables, because one is a county other table and one is a municipal WUG table.
So I guess the answer is, because it's combined, it does exceed the 100 acre feet, but that doesn't qualify it to get out of the county other classification.
I believe so, and it's an action item I have to connect with the Water Development Board, because I don't think we cut the system when you add, when you add it to be a CRU and then all of a sudden it brings it over to a municipal. I think it stays county other.
Okay.
But Elizabeth, if you don't know the answer to that today, is that something you and I can talk through?
Yeah, definitely. We can check in with Katie as well, because she'll know the answer to that. And just to clarify, yes, the list is based on the annual municipal net use of 100 acre feet in any single year within the most recent 5-year survey. So that's the 2015 to 2019.
So it's any total.
Isn't Vinton one of the areas that's going to be on El Paso water in the future? Isn't that what's being worked?
I think the improvements are providing El Paso groundwater to Benton.
Right,
but they don't
so
use their wells.
ultimately down the road somewhere, they're going to simply fall under El Paso water.
If they're buying it retail, if they're providing it through a wholesale agreement, I think they're using it as a retail customer. Therefore, it would disappear.
Yeah, so somewhere down the road,
That's what I think.
that's going to totally fall under El
But then
Paso
I
water.
think that, and then,
I mean, right now it isn't, but
But
down
then-
the road it will probably.
Okay.
then I would think that there's areas that are provided in Benton with El Paso water retail customers, and then there's outlying people that are not connected yet, which we counted as county other.
So that could still be CPU county other.
But
Yeah.
I guess if they've gotten a kind of an EDAP funding to connect Benton Hills to the water utilities, at some point that WUG disappears, I think.
Yep, it might. And so,
Because they're not,
that's
it's
just
not a
future.
wholesale. Now, if it's providing wholesale services, then it retains its WUG identity, right? But if it's really just an extension of El Paso Water Utilities coverage, then it's not a WUG anymore.
I think currently
That's
the way you
correct.
have it set up is correct.
yes, today it's correct,
Yeah,
but if that
down the road
happens,
it's going to change.
it
I
might
think if
dissolve
we
it.
go forward, we learn something every plan we do,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
Benton Hills, the question is, are they becoming El Paso Water retail customers? Because I've not heard of them becoming a wholesale provider like the Little
No.
Valley is.
No.
Therefore, that identity of Benton Hills disappears as it was.
Yeah.
They're just swallowed up as another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question,
Mhm.
not about Vinton Hills. Jeff Davis County.
Yes.
Why is Madera Valley listed under Jeff Davis County? I mean,
Is that the first
they
time?
get water out of Jeff Davis County. And so does the city of Alpine, the city of Almoray. So,
Let me look into that because it was in our plan in 2021. And so it populated here. Are you, Madera, are you saying it should not be a water user group inside Jeff Davis?
Well, they get water out of Jeff Davis. But what I'm saying is there's 3 others that do, and mine is only one listed.
Okay.
That's
Let me make a note.
And who are the other 3?
Alpine and Bamaray. No, just 2 of them.
Just
So
2?
I have 3 of them that get water.
In addition to the Durham.
Okay.
So I figure it should be 3 or 1.
Okay. This is good. I mean, this is why we're trying to meet our July deadline and massage the data and get it right.
So where is Blue Origin going to fit in Culberson?
Everywhere.
Are they a water system?
I don't know, but I mean, they have wells out there and they have buildings that use the water. I don't know what their requirements are.
And you don't know if they're 100 acre feet.
No, but I mean, if they're not, then they should be under county other, and then they.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it all works. So do you have any insight?
Are they considered a system?
So let me go back. How do I go back?
Summer.
Go back to.
She may not be there.
Right there. So they're not a retail, they're not privately owned. So let's go forward.
Well, they are private.
They're not a
Could be a
utility.
But it's
privately
not
owned.
really a utility, is it?
Like they serve a
If they're
community.
serving their own community, it's a utility for that community. I would think it would
I'm
be.
not sure how they're established and created, but I know they use a lot of water.
So this
That could be a privately owned utility.
Okay, so let me make a note of Blue Origin. Blue Origin's gonna come up a lot.
Yeah.
Possibly. Privately owned. Okay. Elizabeth, you and I probably need to set some time up to talk through some of this. We'll do that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So no action is needed, but that is the municipal water user group list. So that was one of 2 agenda items.
Okay. So we'll go on to item 11,
Yeah.
county.
County other. All right, so as a reminder, the county other category represents the aggregation of water systems that provide less than an average of 100 acre feet. This includes your rural domestic use not served by a municipal water utility. So this kind of is like Blue Origin if they've got wells, right? They have their own wells. All right, so let's move through the data that came out of our county other. So you said you had handouts. So in the back of your packets are 2 handouts. Handout 1 is what we're going to start our conversation with. And it has the red line, and it's red font at the top that says handout 1. Keep going. See handout 1. Okay, there you go. If you want to show them on the slide, that is too big. Andrew, it's right here. Then you go to your pocket. Yep.
I gave you my printed copy.
Where did my pocket go?
We're good. We're good.
All right, so let's talk through what I've chosen to present in hopes that it generates the right conversation.
I minimized the viewers here, but we can see.
Okay. So this is that table 2-7, David, that I was talking about. This is not required by the Water Development Board. This was our addition to our regional water plan, so we had a little more detail and a little more line in sight on which water systems comprise county other in each of our counties in Region E.
We don't have handouts on.
It's under,
It's in the-
It's in the very back.
Look farther back.
it'll be under agenda item 11. Yeah, 11, I'm sorry.
It's like 4 pages from the back.
Okay. All right, we're on the.
Are we good? Like red?
There you go.
There we go. Okay, good. Okay. So what we got from the Water Development Board was new information and what we need to be thinking about when we're looking through this list is a few things. The survey period of time at the top, those headers will change. In the previous plan, it was 2010 through 2015, people volunteered survey information, right, for these little county other water systems. The board collected data from 2015 to 2019. So in red font, those are the values. No, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. So in looking at the survey data coming in from this new survey period of 2015 to 2019, the red cross out is saying that either they returned a survey and it had 0 all the way across each year of the survey time frame, or no survey was returned, no data was provided. So the board's, initial look at it is they didn't provide data. They don't go to this level of detail for the plan, we do. So you can list them, you don't have to list them. And so if we don't list them because no survey data was provided, those items fall out of our table. Now the big question is even though they don't have values with them, in the previous plan we had a footnote at the bottom of this table with an asterisk, and we said if you see a name with an asterisk and there's no data, we just said no data provided. We kept the entity listed because the direction in the last plan was this group really does want to keep the layer of detail in our plan as to which water systems sit inside county other for each county. So whether they returned a survey or had 0 in their survey, it didn't matter. We just wanted to know what is county other really, what is it really comprised of? So you can go 2 different ways. You can decide no survey provided, no data with your survey, we're not going to list you, or you can say, no, I really know that there's a Big Bend Resort and Adventure water system out there. Why would we not keep them on our list, regardless of them having returned a survey or not? So I just kind of wanted to present, to start the conversation, what we had in our previous plan. The board submitted their data to consultants to look through. And what did that reveal? It revealed that in the new period of time where they were collecting surveys from 2015 to 2019, some folks didn't return a survey. Therefore, we can list them, we don't have to list them. Now, mind you, this whole table is an added value to our plan. So it's up to y'all to kind of determine what direction you want to take with it.
Okay, if they didn't return a survey, that I have their water usage because they returned it to me.
We could do that.
Okay.
We could do
There's
that.
several that aren't listed here. All production wells have to turn in a yearly usage to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more there. So could we use that amount?
I believe we can. I'd need to work with Katie with the projection group at the Water Development Board.
Okay.
Yes, because the other piece of this that's on me to generate is the Water Development Board will give us our county other water demands. It's a one line and it's a summed value. Well, because we're showing a breakout, our breakout has to sum up to that same number that the Water Development Board provides us. And we have a way of estimating that we've used historically, but if you've got real data, that trumps a calculation that's trying to estimate what that breakout would be like.
I had it for every entity, like Prue Ranch and all of those have their own system.
Okay. So let me make a note so I can work with.
Last how many years?
All right, I'll work with Katie and Elizabeth on county other water system. And Jeff Davis.
Is there benefit to getting Are we giving these folks an opportunity to reply to the survey if they're given another chance?
Well, the first question, I guess, Elizabeth, is I think the time frame for collecting that survey data has closed.
Okay.
And so we'd want to make sure we're in line with what other regions are doing, you know, across the state. So there's a uniformed approach. But that's a question I can ask when I speak to them. Okay, so let's continue the conversation because it is building and we want to be able to hope it's not.
Oh, what do you want to go to next?
Moving forward. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to get back to the PowerPoint.
Okay.
All right, next slide. So what ends up happening is if we take, I keep saying the board's suggestion, it's not their suggestion, it's just the data that they've given us. But if we take that data and we say, well, no survey, no data, take them off the list, that is what your table will look like. And you can take both handouts and they're in the back of your packet and you can kind of flip back and forth. So, you know, in handout 1, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 county other water systems listed for Brewster. Let's not include Studi Butte because it moved over into a municipal water user group. If we eliminate that and just showcase where we were handed data, which is Panther Junction, Big Bend National Park, provided survey data and their water use for each year, well, you're now only listing one water system in your county because it had data tied to it. But the argument should be, are there other water systems, small county other water systems in Brewster, in Brewster County? So is this table misleading if we don't add them, regardless of whether they provided data or not? And so that's the question you guys have to kind of think through is, what direction do you want to take when we include table 2.7? And the intent of it originally was to show that we know what systems sit outside in county other, and we're listing them line by line as a value add to our plan.
So Jennifer, maybe I missed it, but we dropped several user groups from this county other list, and they didn't go up anywhere else. Let's talk about Brewster County.
Yeah.
From the Big Bend National Park, for instance.
Yep.
They didn't have a lot of water, but they did use some, and they just disappeared.
Yeah, so the assumption is in 2015 to 2019, when water use surveys were being collected, they didn't turn one in. And so I would imagine they still use some water, right? That they didn't just fall off,
right? But
they just didn't turn that data in. And therefore there is no information for that entity.
But we do, and we do have historical data back to 2010 showing that they did have some sort of use.
It's all zero.
No. Chisos Basin had 16, Rio Grande Village had 14.
Yeah, so we took an approach in the 2021 plan of leaving them in, even though, like you said, Big Bend Resort and Adventures had zeros throughout the survey period.
Yeah, they could be dropped, but it looks like that makes sense because they didn't have any use then, and maybe not so much now, but.
Well, they were using
Well,
it.
they had use, they didn't report it.
They
This is
just
Kevin.
Didn't report it.
Because that's really growing, and I'm concerned about Lajitas and the Studi Butte water supply, not the corporation, but the RV resort. And the national park is cooperating with Brewster County Groundwater District on developing some wells. So I feel like those numbers should be in here somehow, or some kind of estimate.
That's what I'm thinking too. Even if you just aggregate all those that were dropped, we're looking at 30 acre feet. That's a.
When you have zeros because of non-reporting, can you put an estimate, because the zeros are really misleading.
Do we have time to reach out to these groups and see if there's something we can get from them?
So I don't think Elizabeth and I have the answer to that, because that is a question to the projection team at the Water Development Board as to like, do we still have a window we can work within, or did the window close? So let me reach out to Katie in that department and see if we have time to do additional work to maybe collect some survey information, like Janet was saying.
I might even suggest that instead of zero, putting non-reported, because then zero means they didn't meter it.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
We
That's
could just
Scott.
do it.
NR.
Yeah, we
No
could-
report. That would
Then
be
you
better.
can say, okay, it's
Yeah.
still it means it's on they didn't have the staff or even a flow meter that worked.
Yep,
But
we could change a 0 to just a line, and then our footnote says that line represents
non-reported.
non-reporting.
And even in Jeff Davis County, you got Davis Mountain State Park Campground stopped reporting this like in 2014. But should they be dropped? I mean, that's a pretty active area in your neck of the woods, isn't it?
Well, I can tell
You've
you
got the
my
log.
recommendation, but I want the group to really talk it through and make it known to Andrew and I at the next meeting how you want to move forward. My recommendation is anytime I'm doing added details to a report, why would I go in and remove the added details at a later point in time if I took the effort to put that information in? So my recommendation is we've listed who sits inside of county other. Maybe there are others that need to make the list, but we keep them regardless of whether or not they returned a survey or have non-reporting. Because more importantly, what we're gleaning from this is just what is county other comprised of? When we see county other on all the water development boards reports that go into this plan, at least we have one table in our plan that we can flip to and say, oh, county other in El Paso is actually 7 or 8 entities, right?
Yeah, I think we didn't like county other being this big hodgepodge of vagueness.
Yeah,
That nobody.
that's right.
And so now we're trying to provide clarity. And now the next thing is when it has a bunch of zeros that nobody believes, you put it in R.
Yes, okay.
And
I like
we
that.
show the identity, and then it becomes a valuable resource for the Kevins and out in Big Bend country that want to say, use this whole process for valuable water data that they can't get anywhere else.
Well, just because they didn't report doesn't mean they're not using water. Like I was saying about Janet's area, that Davis Mountains campground was a 22-acre deed, well over twice what Fort Davis Estates records, and all of a sudden they just disappear off the map. And I don't know that that's right. We should be.
And you
We should
sold this when you said hello. Hey, as a group, I'd like to just make a recommendation that we go along with Jennifer's suggestion, and that we agree with that now, so she has that. In addition to whatever Janet can provide, with her additional sources, or anybody else can provide with additional sources.
There you go.
Can we do that for you now?
Yes, I mean,
Okay, do you need a motion to do that?
not at this time, because I think that motion was going to come at our May meeting, but just knowing that you guys are giving me authorization to kind of move forward with the Water Development Board and have some conversations about, can we go back and get other survey information if we have it? We're going to run with our detailed table 2.7. Yeah, that's plenty for this.
And leave them all on there.
Okay.
And just put NR if they don't report. I think it's good to keep them all. Add whichever ones pop up.
The years 15 through 19 is what you're wanting?
Yes, 2015 to 2019, yeah.
Okay.
So what I'll do at the next meeting is I'll come with that revised table, and we'll begin there. Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so we're moving right along then. So here's the question that I'll need to work with Elizabeth on. The collective reporting unit for Benton, this is a county other water system, right? There's now 3 that populate in our data. It's Benton Village Estate, Benton Alegre Estate. So my recommendation is that we aggregate that together, and it's still one line Benton Hill subdivision, but now it will need to be the sum of the acre feet each year in that survey totaled up, which takes us over the 100 acre feet. But I don't think it qualifies it for a municipal water user group, but I will double check.
Yeah, that's what we were talking. This is exactly what we were talking about before. You may need to leave it separated until we find out that it is consolidated.
Yeah, it's separate now.
Yeah.
This is just a thought, like, if we stay with our collective reporting unit, well, it makes sense now to put 3 into that collective reporting unit because there was, Allegra Estates came up and it wasn't in the last plan. But if we do that and it sums to more than 100 acre feet, I don't want that to be confusing on our table.
Do these 3 Benton identities each report a water use survey?
Yeah, so that's them right there. So Allegra Estates turned one in at 2015 at 9.31 acre feet, 9.94 acre feet, so on and so forth. So they've turned their surveys in, they have data. But for reporting purposes, if we want to keep that collective reporting unit as just Benton Hills, which is what we requested in our memo in the last plan, well, now the sum tips the scale over 100, and I just don't want that to create confusion. So let me work with the Water Development Board first to see if we do a collective reporting unit for county other and the sum is more than 100 acre feet, how do they want to handle
It
that?
becomes a what?
Well,
Or it falls under El Paso Water.
I think it is just still a county other water system, but the volume of water per survey year will say 116, 122, 115 in table 2.7, which reminds you is our table, not a table required by the board. But if someone were to pick up our plan and knew that the 100 acre feet threshold is what would tip it into a municipal water user group, and they saw these values for Benton Hills subdivision on our county other, I don't want them to go, well, why aren't they in table 2.5, right? So what could be the solution is do away with the collective reporting unit. Just list them separately. You know, it's not important to roll them into one. We can just have 3 separate
I
small.
thought through the end of all this that Benton was not going to have any wells that they of their own that they operated. It was all going to be provided through. Is that something we can learn together in this next planning process? And
Yeah.
how, I think it's all retail water. I don't think there's any wholesale, like, again, like the Lower Valley where we provide them raw water and they have a system of their own with their own operators. I think they're literally extension of El Paso.
Scott, maybe we can set up a meeting with
Yes.
Village of Benton and talk,
Yeah.
would you be the point of contact representing El Paso?
I'd like to be there. I'm not the expert, but I think I get lots of questions asked about Benton, like, is it wholesale? I don't think it's wholesale. I think we keep saying it's a retail water from the utilities through all these grants. We're basically extending our well field that provides Chew with water on the west side, right?
Yes.
And it's groundwater that we're extending through pipelines and tanks and everything to Benton. So they're just regular customers. just
We'll
like
get that
Chewy
set
is.
up before the May meeting, so you can have that information, Jeff.
Yeah, and let's also invite Katie Goldberg from the Water Development Board. She's the production.
And I
It's
think
not about removing the CRU as a considered part too.
Yeah, and it just takes away the confusion of something
Yeah.
being more than 100 acre feet.
I agree.
And it's in our table only, table 2.7. So.
Yeah.
I think this is the beginning and then the opportunity to ask this kind of question that hasn't really, I think, been answered very well is how are they getting their water? What are their plans?
Yeah, so if they've turned a survey in, they have a water system.
Okay.
So we need to bridge the gap
Yeah.
between how did the board get a water survey from them if you're saying they're getting water through El Paso.
But I
Water
think,
as a retail
I think this is a
Yeah.
private, isn't this private?
They aren't
These
yet.
3 that are listed?
Does anybody know?
I would
think
just
so.
suffice to say that I'm unclear as how.
We need to have that call then.
Let's
Okay.
look for some clarity.
Yes.
Because like you said, if they're turning in a survey, that means they're a water use.
They're reporting.
That means that they're either producing their own water from their wells or they're using.
Buying it wholesale for cheap.
Yeah.
Well, even that.
And I think
That's what a lot of
through
it
this
is.
process, we can memorialize these concepts so that everybody learns from this.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I've got some marching orders that I'll do between now and the May meeting based on the conversation here, and that one of them will be the meeting you set up. And then we will meet in May and decide which path we're going to take. And the Excel sheet that came to the consultants has a column where we are tracking some of our recommended changes and edits, so that when sent back by the July deadline, those edits can be included in. And then in August, we will get, like I said, the last bit of our non-municipal water demand for irrigation and mining. Those are the upcoming items. So John Ashworth really wanted to have a piece of this PowerPoint, and he wanted me to tell you that he thinks this is actually the most important slide of the entire slide deck. So go Chihuahuas.
Okay. Does that mean he's gonna come out to a game?
No,
We're trying.
yeah, he wants to come out to a game, but he said they were up in Round Rock last week.
Okay.
So, yeah. He wanted to see the reaction on all your faces, so. I said he could join. He could join by Zoom.
You tell him I got a foul ball last week at the games. Which I'm very proud of.
That's right.
Did you give it to a kid?
No. I'm old and I keep every foul ball. In fact, the teenager next to me that was gonna get the foul ball was busy eating his food. So he was too slow
what he
with his
gets.
food, so I had to speak to him.
Classic.
Janet, aren't we gonna meet in Fort Dix next time?
Okay, we'll go to item 12 for our next meeting.
Yes.
Do we
So-
want to excuse Jennifer?
Do you guys
all
wanna
need
get
to
going?
Go catch your plane?
It's 3.
You're right.
Okay, we're good. Okay,
You're good?
so
Teresa was the one volunteering Fort Davis. Is she still on?
no, she's not on here today, but so she was
talked about, yeah.
she was offering up High Frontier. The only concern that I have is whether we would have the ability to do the hybrid, depending on whether they have the.
I don't know if it's done.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, they bought it. It is gonna be a resort type place.
Okay, so
So until we have that information, shouldn't we maybe Van Horn? Can we?
I say we probably can have, we should pick these 2 locations. We can say that we're still shooting for High Frontier, but if it doesn't seem like it's going to be appropriate, then we go to our fallback, and that would be Van Horn, May 12th. Okay.
I'm gonna
High Frontier is
say
in Fort Dix.
because I don't think it's gonna be real.
So then we'll
It's a
just,
new facility.
okay.
What about the Indian?
We can schedule Van Horn, and then next time if it's still finished, then we can go there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to set our next meeting for May 12th, and that will be in Van Horn. And
We didn't need.
Mayor Brewster,
No.
where would you suggest we meet?
No, I can't, I'm not there that day. That's a Thursday.
If it's this size, we
I'm
could
not
either
sure.
be at the convention center or at the, like, meeting room at the hotel. That's
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Scott's unavailable.
Scott's not available that day.
You're not available on the 12th. Okay.
Can we,
I can send out,
can we do the 19th?
Mayor Will. Do you want to go forward and she's a.
I think I heard my name, but I couldn't actually hear what was said. Sorry.
oh, we're thinking of,
So can we agree on the date and then figure out where it's gonna be later?
yes, okay, so on the date, right now we were looking at May 12th, but Scott is not available on that date. I think we said the 19th, but that might not be good for you.
We
It's
can
fine.
make your opportunity to meet
19th.
without me.
Okay, so
Right.
those in the virtual world, does anybody have a conflict with the 19th as of now?
What?
You can always send your boss.
19th is fine.
We're good.
Raise
Seen him
raise
a
your
long
hand.
time.
Can I get you, raise your hands, those in online, is the 19th okay for you? Yeah, I see Scary, okay.
The day of corners.
Tim, okay.
Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
Yes, sir?
We have our usual meeting the 19th of May. That's our next groundwater meeting in Alpine.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it'll be over by 9:30, right, Tim? So if you join virtually, that should be fine, right?
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. Yeah.
That's, can you participate virtually?
We had it starting at 11:30.
Oh, I see Randy. Randy, did you want to say
Now,
something?
May 19th is bad for me.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and send out a Doodle poll, get you all to participate, and we'll set it for, maybe we should look at those 2 weeks and it doesn't have to be a Thursday. If,
Annette, is the future of these meetings going to be hybrid?
yes,
Okay,
unless I get some folks, I mean,
I'm just curious because I heard people saying they can attend virtually, and I didn't know that. I'm fine with whatever you can do with technology.
okay.
If that's your plans for doing
Well, I can do
hybrid.
technology really bad. That I can do really easily.
Hybrid,
The part that-
hybrid into the future, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think as everybody knows that, that's part of this scheduling thing.
Mhm.
They may not be able to go to a meeting, driving to it, but they can attend it.
Well, our host is not available on the 19th in Van Horn. So, and then Mr. Leary has his meeting on the 19th. It's bad for Randy. So how about I look at we don't want to go the last week of May because that runs into Memorial and all that good stuff.
Memorial Day, and I'm going fishing.
Where are you going? Okay,
Let's go back to the week of the 12th.
Okay, so I'll send out a poll to see what day is best, the week of the 9th through the 13th, not including the 12th. Because that's when,
Another thought is we could go into June, that first week in June. I mean, it's a July deadline. No, okay. That's a no.
okay, I will send it out between May 9th and 13th and see when everyone's available, as best as we can get. Those who can participate. So we're gonna send out a poll that week of the 9th to the 13th of May, but not the 12th.
I have a board meeting on the 11th.
Is the 12th a Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be like a Tuesday, the 10th.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll put out for the 9th, the 10th, or the 13th.
Okay.
3 days, okay.
Becky needs all the help she can get at the restaurants.
Yes. Okay.
Lizzie's open?
So that's all we have for today.
She got it Thursday, Friday, or Saturday.
They're talking, hold on. Mr. Reyes, is there anything else you would like to cover? If not, we can adjourn for today's
And he'll have
meeting.
a fishing report in there.
Anybody else have anything for the good of it? If not, I would entertain a Jim Ed Miller motion.
So, for Jimmy.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Summer Webb.
First and a second, everybody in favor, indicate by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you, Summer. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Mr. Leary. Thanks, Kevin.